I am Jim Collison, and this is the Clifton Strengths Podcast, Season 3, recorded on November 10th, 2023. In this Clifton Strengths Podcast series, we'll look at how to feel more energized and motivated at work, one theme at a time. And today's theme is Achiever. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you join us and chat at you, or you can email us your questions, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a senior learning and development consultant. Join me for season 1 and 2 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, where we looked at well-being at work and our Clifton Strengths role-based reports. Jaclynn, always great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Jaclynn,
Thank you.
we are talking this season about bringing energy to work with your themes, and today's theme is
Mhm.
Achiever. Let's start with the individual. What are
Mhm.
some ways an individual with Achiever can feel more energized, focusing kind of on their basic needs?
Mhm. Automatically, what comes to mind, because achievers love a good to-do list and a lot of tasks, it can be helpful to start thinking about where your energy is directed and where you're finding the most joy instead of just going, through the mill and taking, 10 tasks in a row, checking off the
Mhm.
boxes. Sure, you can do that. Sure, we do that. But one of the ways that you can be a lot more intentional is to say, okay, let me you know, have a list of all of my to-dos and then let me actually categorize them. What is a key priority and it's something that I love, or key responsibilities and it's something that I love? What's something that I'd like to develop further? Do I have any of those tasks or development that's happening? What's just drudgery for me? What are the tasks that I don't enjoy? And then once you have those blocks of what gives you joy and energy, what drains you, and then what you want to develop, it's going to be a lot easier to have those one on one conversations with your manager too, to make sure that most of what you're doing day to day is in alignment. One, with the company needs or the team needs, but two, it's in alignment with your inherent talent.
Mm.
So, a lot more purposeful. I talk about purposeful productivity a lot with those high in achiever or responsibility. Don't just take things on your
Mhm.
plate, make sure it's purposeful. But I think that's an activity you could do to really find alignment.
You get me thinking about like a theme energy audit. We think of the energy
Yeah.
audit in the terms
Yes.
maybe
It's
our
a good keyword.
homes, right? Of like, hey, where am I losing? Where is cold air leaking in, or where is warm air leaking out? And
Hmm.
and I think there's an opportunity, especially for achievers, to think through like, hey, what are those things that are really charging me up, and what are the things that are draining me? And making that list, so to speak, and then
Hmm.
being purposeful about saying, what can I remove, and
Hmm.
what do I need to do more of, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What can I delegate, automate, or eliminate
Oh,
based
wait
on?
a minute. Say that again. I think
Yeah.
people say that again. What was that?
Yeah. What can I delegate, automate, or eliminate?
Yeah.
If it's in that drudgery category for you.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think being purposeful about it in a way that really thinks about how is this taking away or adding to the energy that I'm bringing every day, right, at
Hmm.
work. And we say at work because that's a space we fit in, but this fits at home,
Hmm.
or this fits in an organization. Like there's lots of categories this can fit into. We'll say at work as a generic term, but these can
Hmm.
fit into anything in your life. What are the ways an individual with achiever can feel more energy by focusing on their individual strengths and development?
Ooh, so that's where, if you've made your list
Mm.
of what is drudgery, what's developmental, and what you love, you could look at that developmental category. And then, either on your own or with the help of your manager, start to think about what development looks like.
Mm.
So, out of those tasks that you wrote down, is there something more you can learn about that task to support you? And maybe that's going to happen through mentorship, shadowing, reading a book, listening to a podcast, um, or maybe your manager can link you up with somebody that is already in that role. If we're thinking more role specific or career pathing, and you can have a one-on-one conversation with them to really just kind of dig into their mind and say, how did you get here? What are the skills that it took for you to reach this level or to get into this role, etc.
Mm. From an achiever standpoint, what's the real, as you think about this in this area of development,
Hmm.
what else, or what could they specifically, what's the strength of that they bring to that purpose of their own personal development? Can you does that
I think
question make sense?
I I think so.
Yeah.
Let's see if our strengths are aligned there. I think the drive, the that just inherent drive that achiever has, when you know the developmental focus that you've got, it's a lot easier to put steps in place.
Mm, mhm.
And we love crossing things off the list, don't we, achievers? And so it just gives you more clarity on what development looks like so that you can create those micro steps and check the boxes, knowing that you're one step closer to that ultimate goal that you see for yourself within development.
Love that. I'm seeing this list in my mind for an
Yes.
achiever. I don't have that. I do some of this. I'm not great at it, but this is one of those areas of like mediocre. Sometimes I
Hmm.
need it, sometimes I don't. But I see this for achiever as being this kind of exercise they walk through. So we
Yeah.
think about transitioning to the manager. One final question on an individual. What are some ways an individual with achiever can feel more energized by building partnerships? Like as we think about teams,
Yes.
finding purpose in their role through partnerships. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I love this one because there's a way to build there's a way to feed the relationships, which is a little bit difficult sometimes for achiever because it's so task focused. But when you really start thinking about when you have the most fun with others, who are you partnering with in the workplace? Because when you are having fun at work and you love who you're working with, you tend to be more productive. You tend to be more creative. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds to just pause for a moment and say, yeah, where do I get joy and energy working with others?
Mm,
What are the responsibilities we're carrying out? Or what are those projects we're working on? And then how do I create more opportunities with that individual or even individuals with similar characteristics? Maybe it's the work style or the personality that gives you energy with that person. And how do you find more of those opportunities?
mm.
Yeah, which
I
is going to drive success.
Yeah, I love that. I think of a podcast that I listen to has 3 hosts,
Hmm.
and, it used to they had a 3rd host that they dropped and then replaced, and the that old host had achiever. I don't know for sure, but that host kept them on track all the time. They'd be,
Hmm.
"Okay, okay, we need, let's," and since the new host they brought in is kinda intellectual, lots of context, lots of historical stuff, and they're all over the place now. Like, you this
Yes, they
right,
don't have
as
the achiever that's like, let's go.
yeah, I oftentimes hear her voice, the achiever, before say, "Now, come on, guys," to other men. "Come
Hmm.
on, guys, let's stay on track," or,
Hmm.
"Okay, we need let's move on," right? And I think that's a great analogy as we think about achievers on teams of playing those
Yes.
roles of pulling the team along, because it is easy sometimes for the team to get off track, to get off
Hmm.
center and to bring have that ability and that strength to be able to pull the team forward. I know I lean into that as a non-achiever. I have activator, but this works completely. It works different for me.
Hmm.
I've now learned to kind of lean on you achievers, and you're practicing actually that achiever talent today as we're doing this podcast. We probably could have put this one off and maybe should have, but you're like, nope, we're going to do this one. We're going to get this done today, right?
Yeah.
You pulled us along.
Yes. Yeah.
You pulled us along in that. So thanks for doing that. Let's think about
For
the
sure.
manager role in this as well. How can a manager with achievers support others? And we'll go back to that idea of basic needs. How can a
Yes.
manager with this help others with their basic needs?
I think about so if you're a manager with Achiever, being aware of busy work that can really distract a team and one, increase bandwidth, but two, confuse them. You've given them so much work that now what should I focus on first? And what's the why behind it? So for an achiever, I think you have to be really careful that it's um, priority driven or purposeful or driving the team towards the, goals that the company set for you. So pause before saying yes to really make sure that this is something that is a need, not just a want or okay, let's do it. And then I've also seen some managers with Achiever that will go back to the team and say, we had this request. It's not part of our priorities or part of our goal, but is this something that you want to take on? What's your bandwidth look like? Just to make sure that it's something that they would agree to, or that it's within scope, not within scope, I'm sorry, but within their bandwidth.
I think this next question fits in really well with it. And so, how can a manager with Achiever help others feel seen, heard, and valued to the individual? So,
Mhm.
I think that's maybe part of the process of understanding it from a team perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it, I think whenever a team completes a project, or they have produced great work, or they've come through a very busy season, making sure as a manager that you're recognizing them in a
Mm,
timely and meaningful way is going to be helpful. Um, One, for the manager, what it does is they're going to be more apt to repeat that success, and they're going to be motivated even more, and they're going to get even more work done for you. Or the next time they have a really busy season, again, they're going to push through because they know that you recognize them, for having, just driven through the fire, so to speak. It's not always easy for someone high an achiever to pause and recognize success. So I think that's something to keep very top of mind. And maybe what's going to be that motivation for you is knowing, oh, if I recognize them, they're going to do more work because it's going to
mhm.
motivate them more.
Yeah, not easy to do unless it becomes a conscious thing to
Yes.
do as part of achieving, right? In other
Yes.
words, okay, for the future of this team, so this
Hmm.
team feels seen, heard, and valued,
Hmm.
I need to do this thing, and it needs to become part of the checkbox, right? It needs to be part of
Yes.
what I get done so others get things done in this process. It
Yeah.
does take a conscious effort though, right? I mean, I think this
Hmm.
is one of those things for some achievers, they need to be very purposeful about getting this on their kind of on their checklist. I don't know any other thoughts
Yeah.
around that, Jaclyn?
Yeah. And I like what you said too, purposeful, because I think the other part of that is, and I had mentioned it earlier, is being meaningful in your recognition. So don't just see it
Mm,
as something on the checklist to cross off, because it's not going to come across very meaningful or authentic. So, you know, set that reminder and make sure it's coming
yeah,
from the heart, not just, okay, got it done.
yeah,
Now they're
yeah.
going to be motivated. Now they're going to produce more work. Don't forget the meaningful piece.
No, right on.
Right.
Or I think sometimes we've even had stacks of drops, around the
Hmm.
organization for recognition. It's like, hey, it's Recognition Friday, so pull your, and you're like, sometimes that works,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't, right? It kind of, I think from an achiever standpoint, it's like, great, we'll just set every Friday, everybody write a drop, and that's again, sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. I think you gotta
Hmm.
kinda think through, like, what are we trying to achieve here when you think about meaningful recognition? Just
Hmm.
assigning it achievers, just assigning it or having it on your checklist or, "Okay, I wrote 1 drop today," or, I had 1 piece of recognition today," is not the real intent of that. The
Hmm.
intent is for meaningful, right? For meaningful work, as we say, in that question, right? Recognition, praise and recognition last 7 days for meaningful work, right? So,
Hmm.
anyways, I love that. Thinking it through. Hey, Achievers, also don't get trapped by thinking, "Oh, it's something to be done. I'm just gonna schedule it," right? I don't know,
Yes.
anything else you would
Yeah.
add to that?
Good one. Don't be trapped by the to-do list. Don't
Exactly.
be trapped by the to-dos. Yeah, and it could even be asking the question of individuals or the team, um, during times, what motivates you, you know, initially, just what motivates you in the workplace, or when do you feel most inspired to push through or do great work, and hear what it is they're saying and try to catch those opportunities in the future. And if it's, busy season, yeah, what motivates you all, or what would inspire you so that we can keep morale high and get through this period? And then they're telling you what it's going to be that's going to keep them moving forward. And you're recognizing and valuing their feedback, and then putting it in motion with those ideas that they circulated.
Mm.
Yeah.
You said the word inspire. Let me bring that question in. How can a manager with Achiever build trust, inspire, and deepen team collaboration, and build some community?
Yes. Um, well, when assigning work to an individual or to a team, making sure that it ties back to how the work is purposeful and it's impacting either the internal or external customer. Making sure it's not just about tasks at hand, but this is the why behind it. And that's something that seems so simple, but it can be easy for an achiever to maybe just give the work without the why behind it. Because again, you could be driven by the task itself, and that's enough
Mhm.
sometimes for an achiever.
Mhm.
Um, because of that love of work in general, but people need to know the why. So pausing and putting a little inspiration behind it. This is the impact that you're driving forward.
Yeah, I think even as you're saying those things, I'm thinking about that last idea of community, and intentionally through the process of getting things done, how are we keeping people close? And it's maybe not
Mhm.
enough as a manager for just going back to this idea of recognition, of just for the manager giving recognition, but for the team themselves, to have that. Hey, are there times, am I, one, as a manager, am I demonstrating this by doing it? Two, am I inspiring others to do it in the way?
Mhm.
And this is not easy. This isn't a thing you do. This is a thing you figure out and practice in. And
Mhm.
even I think sometimes the best laid plans, you think, oh, that worked before, and then you try it again and you're like, nah, it didn't work the second time. It's
Mhm.
a harder thing to do. That doesn't mean you're off the hook. You've got to continue to push forward on this as you think about inspiring and building community. Last
Yeah.
question, Jaclyn, around this. How can a manager with Achievers support the growth of each of their team members?
Ooh, well, they could start to allocate resources. Might be something like training opportunities or courses and materials or um, anything that's within the realm that a manager can do to support that team member's development. So what they can do, and let me kind of back up for a moment too, because achievers have that innate drive, they can drive the learning experience for their
Mm,
team or
mm,
team members. And one of the ways is to ask the team, what would you like to learn more of in the next year or in the next quarter that will support you in your role? For the achiever, what that's going to end up doing is, yeah, I want to make sure that they have the resources or their learning opportunities they need, whether it is a course or a piece of material or whatever, because that's going to drive productivity. We're going to get more work done, and it's probably going to be even more skilled because I'm
mm,
continuing to cultivate their learning and
mm.
development.
Cheevers, there's a lot in what Jacqueline just said there. That's worth a rewind. If you're listening on the podcast or there on YouTube and hearing that again, so much packed into that. And I'm hearing the responsibility of the manager
Hmm.
really come out. Thinking about, and again, let's remember this is bringing energy to the work,
Hmm.
to work, fill in the blank there. It could be home or it could be in an organization, but bringing that energy in there by developing, I think sometimes going from the me to we, not just developing myself, but building others, right? How do I develop and build others using that? So Jacqueline,
Hmm.
well done, well done. As we think about wrapping this theme, some final thoughts on it as we put a bow on today's episode.
Mm. Well, I think it's time for a to-do list, achiever. So if you're a manager, out of those four areas we just discussed, related to basic needs, valuing others, developing others, inspiring others, is there an area of opportunity within one of those four for you? And if so, what's that first step that you can take? Was there an idea that you heard today, or even something that you heard and it triggered a new idea? You say, "Well, that's good, but I want to do this. That makes me think
Mhm.
of this." So start putting that to-do list together. And then if you're an individual, it's the same. I think the best start is to say, "Let me look at everything on my plate, personally and professionally." To your point, Jim, and what gives me a lot of energy, joy, and energy, and what drains me, and
Mm.
what do I want to develop? What are my personal development goals? What are my professional development goals? and then start to chip away at it. It's a lot more intention. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. With that, we'll call it a wrap. And I want to remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available around this, including an additional 6, 7, 8 seasons as we think about these themes. You can get them all in Now and Gallup Access. Visit my.gallup.com for coaching, master coaching. If you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, you can contact us as well, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, you can join us for the 2024 Gallup at Work Summit. If you're listening to this after that, we probably still have a summit going on somewhere at some time. Check it out. All the details, gallupatwork.com, and stay up to date on all our future webcasts by joining our Facebook group. And you can join us on any social platform just by searching Clifton Strengths. If you've enjoyed it, we ask that you hit those like and subscribe, the magic like and subscribe buttons there, and appreciate that as well. Thanks for listening today. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.